Hi there. This is video 2.2, linear relations and functions. So let's start off with our vocabulary. And we've got lots of vocabulary, so we'll start off in sections. So we've got linear relation, non-linear relations, linear equations, and linear functions. Linear relation is just relations that have straight lines. And nonlinear relations are relations that are nonlinear or non-straight lines. So a curve, a U-shape, a circle. We're talking about their graphs. What is a linear equation? It's just the equation of a linear relation or a linear line. And it's got some special characteristics that you need to know about. So for instance, we have an equation such as y equals 2x plus 4 is an example of a linear equation. Now, you're only going to have multiplication, addition, and subtraction of a variable and a constant. Okay? You will not have two variables multiplied by each other, nor will you have a variable in the denominator. Let's write these things down. You will not have a variable with an exponent other than 0 or 1. I say 0 because x to the 0, anything to the 0 power equals 1, so it's implied. But if you're simplifying expressions and you end up with x to the 0 is just simply 1, that is okay because it's a constant. So you can have exponent to the 0 or exponents to the 1. No other exponent. And the graph is always a line. That's it. Okay, you got to know those things are really important. A linear function is just a function with ordered pairs that satisfy a linear equation. So let's go straight and let's look at what are we going to do in this section. We're going to identify linear relations and functions, and we're going to write linear equations in standard form. Okay. So let's look at here, now that we've got the definitions of linear functions, linear equations, linear lines, let's look at the difference between a linear equation and a nonlinear equation. This column, well, we have plus or minus, and we have a variable times a constant only. We have x equal a number. Yes, the exponent's 1. I don't have the multiplication of two variables. I don't have variable denominator, and the highest power of my variable is 1. Same thing here. And here, I can have a fraction. A fraction is a constant. It's a number times a variable. Let's look at this column. Why is the first one not a linear equation? Because you have y to the second power. And why is this one? Because you should know that the square root of x can be rewritten as x to the 1/2. Should have touched upon that in Algebra 1. We're going to relearn it again this year. Why is the third one not a linear equation? Because you have the product of two variables, which you cannot have. And the very last one, why is it not? Because you cannot have a variable in the denominator. Okay, so let's look at example 1 on our video note. It said, state whether each is a linear function. Write yes or no, explain. Why is this one a function? Now remember, f of x is just a fancy way of writing y. So we can rewrite that to say y equals negative 3/4 x plus 8. Yes? So I have a variable times a number. That's okay. Their highest power, they're both 1. And there's not a variable in the denominator, nor do I have two variables multiplied. So this is a linear function. Let's look at b. b is f of x equals 2/x. Is this a linear function? No, because you have x in the denominator. What about g of x comma y? 3xy minus 4. Even if you don't understand this, this is not a function because I have the product on this side of, x and y, two variables. So it is not a function. I want you to pause this video and I want you to do guided practice 1A and 1B. Okay, let's look at this real world example. It says the growth rate of a sample of Bermuda grass is given by the function f of x equals 5.9x plus 3.25. where f of x is the total height in inches and x is the days after initial measurement. How tall is the sample after 3 days? So what are they really asking us to do? They really want us to do f of 3. They want to know what is y, because y is what? The total height. What's the total height, y, in inches after x days, after 3 days? Because 3, so we're just simply putting in 3 for this, and you're going to simplify and you're going to do the math. When you do all the math and multiply in order of operation correctly, you get f of 3 equals 20.95 inches is how tall the Bermuda grass after 3 days. Let's look at B. It says the term 3.25 is a function, in the function represents the height of the grass when it was initially measured. So the beginning, it started off when it was measured, the grass was 3.25 inches tall. The sample is how many times as tall. So they want to know the sample, which is here, after 3 days that they took, that's from A. They want to know is how many times as tall after 3 days. So how many times as tall is the original measurement of 3.25 after 3 days? So we know after 3 days, it's 20.95. So we're going to divide the height after 3 days, which is 29, by the initial height, which is 3.25, which gives us approximately 6.4 times as tall as the initial height. Okay, so let's look at the next key concept. I'm not going to make you do the guided practice here, so we can just move on. Standard form. Now, this is something from algebra, and we're just going back. You were just quizzed over this, so this should be really easy. Standard form, which is one of your vocabularies, is the form ax plus by equals c. You need to know this. A, b, and c are integers, okay, and they have to have a GCF of 1. That means they have no greatest common factor. You have to divide it out. And A must be greater than 0, which means basically A has to be positive. So you need to know these things. It's on your little chart, Curie concept. So that's really important. So let's look at this one. They want us to put this in standard form. So let's look at the problem. So it's -3/10 x equals 8y minus 15. So we know standard form is ax plus by equals c. So we're just going to use algebra. So I need to put my x and y on one side. So I'm going to subtract 8y. I'm using the subtraction property of equality. So it's once on the left, once on the right. So I have 3/10 x minus 8y equals, this cancels out, -15. This is why you write it. These aren't like terms. You can't combine them. So I have my x and my y on one side, my constant. However, what did I say? A, b, and c have to be integers. -8's an integer, -15, but a is not. A is -3/10. And a has to be positive. This is a. It's the coefficient of x. So to get rid of this, I'm going to multiply the entire equation by -10, which means I distribute it to all 3 terms. -10 times -3/10. Negative times negative is a positive, so my positives cancel. 10 times 3/10 x, the 10's cancel, so I'm left with 3x. -10 times negative is a positive. 10 times 8y is 80y. -10 times positive, -15 is positive 150. So now it's in the ax plus by equals c form. A, B, and C, are they all integers? Yes. Do they have a GCF? Well, 3 is the smallest number. Can 3 go into 80? No, it's not a dividend. So there's no other factors of 3 because it's prime. So there's GCF is 1, and this is standard form, A, B, and C. All right. So I want you to pause this. I want you to go and do guided practice 3A and 3B. Let's look at example 4. Oh, I went too far. Sorry. It says use intercepts to graph the equation. All right, so what are intercepts? They want the x-intercept and the y-intercept. So remember, x and y-intercept. So the y-intercept is just a coordinate of a point at which a graph crosses the y-axis. X-intercept is a coordinate of a point at which the graph crosses the x-axis. All right, so they want us to find the x and y-intercepts of this graph. All right, so let's look at it. And the graph is 2x minus 3y plus 8 equals 0, and then graph the equation. So you should know this. Write this down if you don't have it. An x-intercept is going to have some coordinate x comma 0. The y-intercept is going to be 0 comma y. Okay, so what does that mean? That means for the x-intercept, I'm going to replace x with 0. So I'm going to do 2 times 0 minus 3y plus 8 equals 0. So 2 times 0 is 0, so I'm left with negative 3y plus 8 equals 0. And I'm just using algebra here. And I'm dividing by 3. I'm using my properties. So y equals 8/3. All right, to do the x-intercept, I'm going to put 0 in for x. Let's do red. So this equals 0, so minus 3. Oopsie. Got it backwards. This is the y-intercept. So now I'm going to put 0 in for x, and for y. So this is going to be 0. So then I'm left with 2x, this is 0, plus 8 equals 0, minus 8, 2x equal negative 8, divide by 2, x equal negative 4. So this is my x and y-intercept. Okay, so now I'm going to go graph. And so remember, this is negative 4 comma 0. Oopsie. Don't want that anymore. Negative 4 comma 0. And this is 0 comma 2 and 2/3 if you change it to a mixed number. So I'm going to go to negative 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 0. And 0, 1, 2, 3, 2 and 2/3 is right here. And then how do you graph it? You connect, whoops. You connect the dots with a straight line and a ruler. Not like my crooked line here. And that's how you graph it. It's really that simple. So pause it and end the video with guided practice 4. And we'll see you in class.